The world is on fire. The podcast with David Cortez.
I'm trying to free your mind, but I can only show you the door. You're the one that has to walk through it. Morpheus, the Matrix.
Welcome to The World's on Fire. How's everything going, Gina?
Going great.
Okay. This last week has been super eventful, I think, for the country. In case the audience doesn't know, I don't think anybody would know for the most part, but Gina and I used to work at Gary Job Corps in San Marcos, Texas. We used to work there, and what's it called?
For years.
For
For years, dude.
for too
Not just
long.
a couple of months.
Yeah,
For years.
we're there for a long time, for a long freaking time, and shout out to all the cool stuff that works there. I mean,
Only the cool ones.
only the cool ones. I won't say your name, but I don't like you. And
You know who you are, dude.
you know who you are. Oh, all of you who gave me a hard time when I was there. I don't like you. But
Yep.
but I
Same.
care about the ones who were nice, and I feel for the students who lost. This opportunity to pursue their trade, to pursue their education, to pursue goals that they had. So I know there's a stat going around, something like 38% graduation rate or something like that is what everybody keeps on talking about, the stat. But I'll tell you this much, from my perspective, if we could just get one student to graduate, to finish, and to have a beautiful life, and it be better than what it was when they first got there, to me it's worth $1 billion. My opinion, in my opinion. And it was
That's real sweet.
huh? It's the truth.
That's real sweet.
Yeah, it's how I felt about it because I saw a lot of students graduate and make a lot of money. So I know the stats
Yeah.
are one thing, but the reality looks different. I worked there. I saw them afterwards. I spoke to them. They would give me calls. They would call back to the building where I worked at and say, hey, Mr. Cortez, hey, I'm out of here in the world and I made it. I made it. I'm getting paid over $20 an hour now. I'm an inspector, or I'm doing this. I took an apprenticeship. I did this. I did that. I'm going to be working in electrical and what's it called? Getting paid like 18 to start off with, and then increase it to like 20 something later on in a couple of months. This was like in 2014 through 2018. And I saw kids really succeed in this program. I did see quite a few different cases where that did not happen, where people struggled and they could not make it through and reach their goals. But like I said, for a bunch of the kids, they succeeded, and if they didn't get their trade, they at least got their high school diploma. So that's something. It really is. And the program, again, there were things that were wrong with the program, and I get that, but there were things that were amazing about the program, and the stats cannot take away from that. They don't. And again, even if it was just one, two, or a handful, I know it was way more than that, but even if it was just a few people who could have a better life because of the program, then that's worth it. What's the alternative? Everybody who didn't go, or everybody who would have gone, goes to the military. No offense to the military, but what I'm saying is that's not for everybody, and that's from a certain perspective. And everybody's already talking about it on TikTok. It looks like a coercion to get people to go to the military. That's what it looks like. But also, what's the alternative for some of these kids to stay where they're at, to never progress, and to not advance, and to have to work in certain jobs that are not the best and that don't pay as much and that don't pave the way for a good future. I'm not gonna talk too much about that, but I just felt like saying something because I used to work there. Gina used to work there, and we met some amazing people there, some amazing staff members, some amazing kids, and we helped change people's lives. That's my 2 cents. Gina, do you have any comments on it specifically?
It's a tough program. From my perspective, because I went through it. I did the program. That was not easy. And like in a social concept, because you're there and I know you're saying it's only a handful that graduate, and I
I
could
say even if
say,
it was just a handful that graduated, not that it was a handful. A lot more people
I
graduate.
mean, it's there also realistically, there weren't that many graduates because of the time span and time that it takes them to go through the program. Um, I would say like per dorm once a week who'd be graduating, maybe one to two.
Yeah.
And just going through it, it's tough, man. There's how do I say this? Like there's a lot of okay, I want to say like there's the handful that actually take it seriously and actually utilize the program because there's a lot of obstacles going through that program. One, it can be the peers. Two, it can be the staff.
Hmm.
And if you have good staff, the program is really manageable. It can be manageable
Yeah.
with the right people, the people that believe in it, the people that know it, the
Yeah.
people that can help you. But when you don't have the right people, man, it's just like another obstacle.
Yeah. When you have the wrong
Yeah.
people, the wrong staff members, they can be a headache. When you have the wrong people as far as peers, as far as roommates, that can be a headache. And it makes it more difficult, right? But I guess this
Yeah.
is a good segue into the actual topic of the day. And the topic of the day is what I call the Better Man Project.
Okay.
That's, there's a reason why I'm calling it that, by the way. And I'll get into it in just a minute. If I have my sound effects working, this would be a lot more cool, right? But I'll let them later on. I'll let them maybe right here in this spot right here.
Cool,
But
cool, cool.
but I want to start off this meeting with going over a specific verse, and that is this one, Proverbs 24:16. It says, "For a righteous man falls 7 times and rises again, but the wicked stumble in time of calamity."
And boy, did they stumble.
Hmm.
They fumbled.
This this specific quote or Bible verse, it actually I learned about it through The Matrix, the movie, The Matrix.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we're not gonna have a red pill or blue pill conversation necessarily,
Okay.
but in the movie there was a scene where Neo's having to fight all the agents. He's having to fight all the agent Smiths because they're taking over the program.
Mm.
Maybe that's kind of what's happening right now. But he's fighting all the agents, and Mr. Smith asked him, "Why do you persist? Why do you continue?" And he kept on questioning him over and over again, like, "Why are you continuing to fight? Why not just give up? Why not just accept that you're gonna lose?" And Neo got back up, struggling, right, to get back on his feet, and he said, "Because I choose to." That's it. I choose to, right? And he had come to the that point in his journey where he knew what he was fighting for, and he just nothing was going to stop him from going that direction to save Zion. So, in this Bible verse, it actually was making reference to that specific scene where he got back up, where he fell repeatedly over and over again and kept getting back up. And that's what brings us to this conversation today, right? Talking about the Better Man Project, which is an idea of trying to help men become better men and trying to help them reach their full potential and not let the past or current mental health challenges stop them from becoming the person they're supposed to be. I've talked about some things in the previous podcast already. I've talked about emotional intelligence in the last one, and that was a very good conversation on emotional intelligence. I talked about it with Gina, with you, right? And
Yeah.
one of the a specific topic was attachment styles, right?
Mm.
That we talked about in the first episode. But the reason why I bring that up is because men are notorious for having a specific attachment style. And that one is the dismissive attachment style. So that is having a high self-evaluation and having a low evaluation of other people. What this does to people in relationships is that it keeps them at a distance, right? So a person with a dismissive attachment style will try to keep their partner at a distance and not be vulnerable, not try to be emotional, not try to be sensitive, not try to put themselves at emotional risk of experiencing hurt. And this is very dangerous for a lot of different reasons. But a dismissive attachment style is formed from having negative experiences with people, specifically parents. So at some point, kids, they learn that they cannot trust any adult in their life. So they start to, if they go through this kind of situation, so they start to learn that they have to become overly self-reliant. And then they become overly self-reliant, and it shapes their perspective of other people. Oh, I can only trust in myself. I cannot trust in anybody else. But then if they carry this with them forever, then they keep their partners at arm's length because they don't want to, expose themselves in a vulnerable manner. They don't want to let their walls down. But it's very important. this does not just happen in childhood or adolescence, but it could happen later on. A lot of men, over the years, they become more detached from relationships and more, more dismissive of relationships. I work with a lot of people, and I see and I hear a lot of different cases. And one pattern that I've seen repeatedly is that past a certain point, past like 30 years old or so, men can become very cynical and very narcissistic, very selfish, and very dismissive.
That's terrible.
Yeah, what are your thoughts, Gina, so far?
That's terrible. It's just a terrible way to live life.
It is. It is. But I mean, it is a terrible way to live life, but it happens because of the emotional wounds that a man experiences. So with it's complicated because there are gender differences for dating and for relationships. For women, they're more likely to become more anxious within relationships afterwards. They're more likely to become more anxious, more worried about stability, less trusting, checking phones nonstop, having insecurities, all these different things. And at best for women, when they've experienced enough hurt from men, they can start to become very anxious, have an anxious attachment style. They can become avoidant or disorganized. That's best when they've experienced so much hurt. At worst, and some people have talked about this in the last couple of years, is that women can develop BPD, borderline
Well,
personality disorder. And the reason why this happens is because with enough damage to somebody's psyche, this thing forms, BPD forms. And it usually is created from trauma. It's created from trauma. It's created from negative experiences. It's created from damage from close people. Sorry, emotional close people, right? Intimate partners, all these different things. So people with BPD experience BPD because of a lot of different factors, but a huge part of it is trauma and also hurts and emotional wounds from their relationships. So this can happen, and it's a little bit scary. It really is. But again, this is the worst case scenario. The most likely outcome is that a lot of women just become very not trusting. They become not trusting, anxious, and preoccupied with stability in the relationship. That's more likely to happen. BPD is more of a long shot when it mainly applies in abusive relationship. Okay, so I know. I know.
God.
I mean, it's a bit of a long shot, but it does happen. I mean, it's one of those things where like the right circumstances have to be lined up for somebody to actually develop this. It's not like you had one bad relationship and then boom, you have it. It's not like that. It's more like you were in quite a few different bad relationships that were abusive, that were traumatic, that were horrifying, right? And that have left you a bit scarred from the experiences. But again, the most people with BPD, they develop it as a result of childhood experiences. But the potential for it to develop later on in life is possible. It is. But going back to men, because I want to focus mainly on men for this episode, because it's important. So with men, again, it creates when men have been through enough hurt, it creates a dismissive attachment style. And it makes it to where they become more dismissive of emotions. And a lot of different things happen, right? But going back to the verse, for a righteous man falls 7 times and rises again, but the wicked stumble in time of calamity. And the reason why I brought up that specific verse is because of this reason. It takes courage to love and trust when you have had your heart broken before.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing. So a dismissive attachment style really is the person saying, I will never let anybody hurt me like that ever again. I have experienced it too much, and I will never be vulnerable in a way to where that can ever happen again. So then they build this giant wall around their heart, and they keep people at bay, at a distance, to never experience that hurt ever again. The problem is that things they never really go away. They just come back in uglier ways. They come back in uglier ways. So just because you have an attachment style that forms like this one, and you're trying to keep people at a distance, it does not mean that you're going to have an okay relationship necessarily, or that you're not going to struggle with something. So the goal for people is to try to reach a secure attachment style. That really is the goal. It should be the goal for everybody. That is the goal. That is the goal. And to try to have that in a relationship. Now, side note, I actually specialize in attachment theory. It's my favorite theory in therapy. And I want to point this out. Attachment therapy is one of the hardest things for anybody to do. It's really hard, not just for clients, but also for even for therapists to do. If you go online right now and you try to find attachment therapists, you'll probably run into maybe like three within like 100-mile radius. And seriously, seriously, you only find like three or something like that. And the reason why you find so few of them is because this specific therapy and theory is so difficult to master. It is so difficult, and you have to go through so many different what's it called? You have to learn so much first of all about attachment. You have to learn so much about how people relate to other people. You have to learn about dynamics. You have to learn about attachment wounds. You gotta learn how to alleviate every attachment wound. You have to also be able to conquer them up. And this is, maybe some therapists will have their own comments about this and say, no, it's not true. But in my opinion, you have to be able to conquer your own attachment issues if you have any. You do. You do. So, that's hard in itself already. But if you have not conquered your own attachment issues, then how do you help out somebody else who's going through the exact same thing? That's the thing. It's really hard. It really is, because it just takes so much. It takes so much to be able to deja vu. I'm having deja vu for some reason, but but it takes so much to be able to conquer your own demons. And we talked about this in the last podcast when I spoke to Anna in that podcast. But people have to conquer their own demons. So some demons are very difficult to conquer. Attachment demons are one of the hardest ones. They are. What do you think about that, Gina? Like the attachment
Why
issue?
is it harder?
Oh, because it requires it requires a lot. It requires a level of emotional intelligence that is through the roof, in my opinion. At least when you're trying to help out somebody else. So if you're going to help out somebody else with a specific issue, this one requires so much emotional intelligence that it has to what's it called? You have to be at a certain point. Not just I'm not talking about a certain point in necessarily in career, because somebody could have 20 years of experience in therapy or 20 years of experience in life coaching or something, right? That will not mean that they'll be able to help out somebody else with attachment issues. They have to be at a certain point when it comes to their own growth and emotional development. That's the thing. There has to be this level of emotional growth and maturity and development. And I don't want to call it transcendence, but a bit of a transcendence from from what a person is experiencing in their life, if that makes sense. But think of it like this. In Japan, they have a term called satori. Satori basically means being able to reach a certain level of enlightenment, that really distinguishes you from other people, that really makes it to where you're able to see things past the human experience, be able to see things for more than just from what they are. So it's so difficult. There's a movie that actually describes this. So I already talked about it before as well, but Good Will Hunting.
Mm.
So he actually struggled with attachment issues. He struggled with fear of abandonment. He did.
Mm.
And in the movie, he went to what, 3 or 4 different therapists and psychologists.
Yeah.
And they all, he messed with all of them. He joked with all of them. He was just, he was just taking them for a ride, really bad. He got them upset, and they just ended things like after the first session. Yeah. So that's an example of what I'm talking about. You could go to multiple therapists for the specific issue, but if they have not conquered their own, then how are they going to help you, right?
Mm.
Not just that though, but the amount of experience that it takes to handle these kinds of issues is so immense that it's not something that people can readily do. Not only that, but I've seen people fumble it like crazy too. So I've seen I don't want to talk bad about therapists necessarily, but I gotta point out very good examples that I've seen. So I've seen examples where, let's say, women have been hurt, right, by partners or by what's it called, by parental figures. Let's go with sexual trauma, which is a very common example, right? So they've been hurt by parents, they've been traumatized. I know, very deep subject, huh? Very deep subject.
It's like you said, it's so common.
It's
I know,
it's
it's just
pretty
wild.
pretty bad. It's pretty bad, but
Yeah.
but then there's that issue, But then there's the issue of intimate partner violence and all these different things. But let's say that somebody has been through all these different things. I've seen it a humongous chunk of the time when people that have been through these things go to therapy or go to get help, that they start to focus on feeling safe, and trying to avoid everything that scares them or that's triggering. That's not
Really?
that's not the correct path.
Yeah.
They're going the wrong way. They're going the wrong way. So with this mindsets, a lot of people develop a desire to have either control of situations to feel safe, like phone checking or tracking, or trying to feel secure in so many different ways. So trying to feel safe in that sense is not it's not good. It's pretty bad. But the thing that I see a lot of the times is that because of this desire for comfort and for safety, people avoid taking chances. People avoid taking chances, and what happens is that for women specifically, a lot of the times it's a case that they will try to avoid being vulnerable and going towards connection, but in a different kind of way. So they won't try to take a risk, but it's similar to men. It just looks a little bit different. But I guess I want to elaborate more on that, right? But anyways, so for both people though, for women and for men, at the end of the day, they're both experiencing the exact same thing though. Only that one is filled more with anxiety, and the other one's filled more with dismissiveness. One is saying, "I'm going to be anxious and not trust you because I'm not gonna risk getting hurt. So I'm going to consistently feel anxious and worried about what you're doing." The other one for men is, "I will not be close to you emotionally, and I will not let my walls down because you're going to hurt me like everybody else has hurt me." So there's a similar challenge that unfolds for both after a certain point in life, but also after enough negative experiences. And with both, the challenge is trying to overcome the past and trying to heal and trying to go towards a secure attachment style. If you have, and this is for the audience, I just want to make sure I say this pretty loud and clear. If you have an anxious attachment style, if you have disorganized attachment style, an avoidance attachment style, uh, a dismissive one, right? Sorry, I already saw them, right? Sorry. Dismissive, anxious, avoidant, disorganized. If you have any of these, they're not secure. That's not secure attachment style. You have to try to put in the work to be able to counteract the natural inclination that your mind, body, and spirit are telling you to do. I know how it's going to sound. It sounds like what are you talking about? Well, if you put it from this, think of it like this: if somebody is anxious and they start to behave in an anxious manner, they start to want to check phones or track locations or double check everything. That cannot be happening because mistrust feeds mistrust. And if you behave in that manner, then it'll make it towards an untrusting relationship that will at some point fall apart. If you have a dismissive attachment style, for men, this is the culprit. For men, it is that they become emotionally unavailable a lot of the times. That's the thing, emotionally unavailable. Now, that's the least troublesome thing when you think about it in the grand scheme of things, because at the worst case scenario, at the worst of it, it could look like controlling behavior. Like controlling behavior, like I'm not going to let you go spend time with your friends. I don't know with who you're hanging out with. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if your friend likes you. I don't know all these different things. It can look like that in the worst case scenario for a dismissive attachment style person, but that can happen. You're making a face. I'm curious. I'm
I'm
curious.
just like, I've not heard of before, so that's why I'm like, oh, golly, geez Louise.
No, it's at its worst though. At its worst. So I mean, at its best, it's just becoming emotionally unavailable if you have a dismissive attachment style. But when I think of it like this, when I think of dismissive attachment style, I think of it as dismissiveness of love or affection or warm fuzzy feelings, right?
Hmm.
But again, at best, it's just going to be emotionally unavailable and distant, and not trying to be in that emotional space with your partner. At worst, it looks like controlling behavior in a lot of cases. It looks like being callous and cold-hearted and all these different things. But going back to the what's it called topic, I deviated just a little bit. So the Better Man Project. So let's talk about what makes a man a better man. So one of the things that I've seen repeatedly that helps a lot of men that I think men have to at some point develop. I mean, this is a must. This is a must. They have to develop a code. They have to
Cool.
a code, a code of being. So here's the thing. So previously it was religion that did it for a lot of people. Religion was a thing that kept everybody in line. Thou shalt not kill, steal, thou shalt not kill, steal, not going towards lust, envy, gluttony, wrath, all these different things. I mean, the Bible is a lot of different things, but it also provided a level of code and accountability for people. And for men, right? I mean, this was also a code. This was a way to navigate life. But what happens when the code gets destroyed or when the code is no longer followed because of disengagement from religious practices or because of religious trauma or because of, let's say, the person's just not into religion because they have like a negative connotation with it, a negative association with it. Then what? Then what does the person follow? Right? I mean, what do they follow? Well, if the code was meant to provide a level of morality, if religion was meant to provide a level of morality and distinction between good and bad, then what does a person who has no code follow?
Philosophy.
That's good. That's good. So philosophy is good. So philosophy stands for the love of wisdom. That's what it means, love of wisdom. And that can help out some people, but I don't hear a lot of people talking about philosophy. I mean, some people do. And if they have it in their life, then that's good. I love philosophy because I grew up watching Bruce Lee in movies and reading his books and reading what he wrote on philosophy and other philosophers, right? But for the most part, there's something else that happens, and it's been happening a lot more in the last couple of years. And so it's important to point out something. So this is good. This is neither completely good or completely bad, but it's important to call it out for what it is. So Stoicism is something that really took off a long time ago, right? So Stoicism is a way to conquer the mind, to conquer maybe the challenges that you're facing in a different way, with like a strong warrior spirit and mentality. But also at some point, it starts to look like the suppression or repression of emotions.
Why?
Well, because let's look for it right now. So let's go with one Stoic quote. So to be Stoic is not to be emotionless, but to remain unaffected by your emotions. Right? So what I mean, that's a great quote when you look at it from a surface level. But what is it really saying?
To me, it sounds like um to almost be like emotionally aware of yourself.
Yes. And so for some people can take it in different ways, right? But for a lot of people, they could take it as let's say to remain unaffected by your emotions. But what does that mean when you're struggling with something in a relationship and then it requires that you tap into your emotions?
Well, tap in.
Yeah, but the thing is, this further reinforces not being able to, or not needing to, or not what's it called? This further reinforces in a way neglecting your emotions from a certain perspective. So if
Mm.
men have already been told repeatedly, it's not okay to feel your emotions, it's not okay to cry, it's not okay to do all these different things. But if I tell you that you should be unaffected by your emotions,
See, I was thinking in like the sense of, say for instance, like you're enraged and you're not acting out, you're not lashing out, you're trying to ground yourself and take in, be aware
yes,
and all.
maybe that's how it's supposed to be, maybe understood. But a lot of people understand stoicism in a different way, as a way to suppress and control your emotions and to not be able to be taken over by them. But the thing is, if you hear that repeatedly throughout the years, not to not allow your emotions to take over, to not go in that place mentally, then at some point you start to just not maybe be good at expressing them. You start to suppress them. You start to what's it called, struggle to operate in that playing field. You do.
Mm.
Because think of it like this. If this wasn't so much of an issue, then one, a lot of women will not say that men are emotionally available. Right? So men are emotionally unavailable a lot of the times. But I don't think it's because they're trying to be. I think it's because they've been trained to be. There's this quote that I thought it was a beautiful quote, by the way. I thought it was a beautiful quote. Let me see 1 second. 1 second. So if a man never saw emotional safety growing up, how can we expect him to operate in a relationship? Society told him to be strong, but never told him what to do with his sadness, his fear, or his shame. You see what I mean?
Mm.
There's so much of reinforcement of this need to be strong, to stay in control, to not let yourself fall apart, to not feel fear, to not show vulnerability, that it leads to men becoming emotionally unavailable. So it's hurtful to men. But what's it called? The reason why I bring it up is because it's one of the things that's affecting men significantly, in my opinion, from what I've seen. But going back to the code, right? Going back to the code, I deviated again. I'm gonna have to do a lot of editing for this episode. But going back to the code, with men, having a code will be very helpful to be able to navigate the world. My personal code, right? I mean, I have different codes, but one main focal code that informs the rest, I suppose, and that is the code of Bushido. Bushido, or the 7 virtues of Bushido, is a way to navigate life. It was established by the samurai, and they lived by it and they died by it. And the code was meant to be a way to protect people from derailing in life. The code is amazing. I love it so much. I read it every single day, like clockwork. I'm being serious about that. I read it every single day. I have it on my door, so every time I get out of my office, I stop and I look at it and read it every single day to keep that in check, right? To keep it in my mind fresh and always go back to it. But the code is like this. It has these 7 virtues: integrity, respect, heroic courage, honor, compassion, honesty and sincerity, duty and loyalty. It's pretty good. It's really good.
Yeah, nice.
With the first one, integrity, righteousness, justice. So they're all that kind of go together. The main goal is to be honest in dealing with people and commit to your choices and hang on to your beliefs and keep your word. That's what it means to have integrity. That alone, if everybody just followed that rule and operated with that rule,
That'd be great.
Huh?
That would be great.
Exactly. If everybody just did that one, life would be so amazing, so much easier for a lot of people. But the list continues. Respect. Number 2, respect. Treat people right. Simple as that. If everybody just did that, then again, people will be living a very great life. Then you have heroic courage. This is where we kind of get into the weeds of it. So act when needed, right? What is being vulnerable, or what is being vulnerable when needing to be vulnerable in a relationship, if not being a courageous person? If vulnerability is the opposite of dismissiveness in a relationship, then being vulnerable is having courage. So for men who struggle with a dismissive attachment style, the truth is, I mean, it's the comments. It's cowardly behavior. It is to not be vulnerable. It's cowardly behavior, and so much that it actually is one of the factors that leads to divorces in the country. Yes. So
You're lying. What?
huh? No, really, it is. So what happened was that John Gottman, but they did a lot of research in what makes couples work, what makes couples last, and they found that there were 4 different factors, 4 main factors. I'll go over them just because why not, right? I'll go over it. 4 factors that make it to where a couple is more likely to break up than not. And if these 4 things are in your relationship, not yours, Gina, specifically, but like in the audience's relationship, then they are likely heading towards a breakup. The more of these that are in a relationship, the more likely the breakup is to happen in the future, in the next like few years. So they are as follows. The first one is what's it called? I'm gonna, sorry, it's a harsh startup. Sorry, it's criticism. My bad. Criticism. So criticism is criticizing somebody in a very harsh way. Some people will say stuff like you never help out, you don't throw out the trash, you're lazy, you're mean, you're what's it called, you're a slob, right? And they start off very strong, very critical, and that destroys a man's self-esteem. First of all, it makes them feel not appreciated. It makes them feel terrible about themselves because the partner at that point is engaging in character assassination along with criticism, right? And the antidote to this is a gentle startup. So instead of saying you're a slob, you don't clean up after yourself, you don't take out the trash, I do everything. Why not say something like this? Honey, I'm struggling with all the tasks that I gotta do this week. I'm wondering if you can take out the trash. I'm wondering if you can clean the room and clean the restroom and help me out with the dishes. Right? A lot simpler, a lot nicer. But if you start off with criticism, then it's really hurtful and detrimental to the relationship. Then you have defensiveness. Defensiveness is how it sounds, being very defensive in relationships and not wanting to be vulnerable, which is what I said that's required, right? So when people are defensive, my head, I'm sure anybody else's head makes this like the image. But in my head, when I think of defensiveness and defensive people, I think of somebody who's holding a shield and holding a sword on this hand. And whenever they get told something, even if it were to be true or false, they block whatever they're hearing. Then they just swing right back with an insult or something like that. So defensiveness. And the opposite of defensiveness is taking responsibility and being vulnerable. You can see why that would be so difficult for somebody with a dismissive attachment style to engage in. It'd be hard for them to engage in vulnerability and taking responsibility. It'd be difficult because they were trying to keep people at arm's length. They don't want to lower their guard down. They don't want to express their feelings. They don't want to admit fault. So if you don't want to admit fault, you're not going to take responsibility because taking responsibility means being vulnerable and being wrong. Right? And then you have these two, right? So criticism, and then the antidote is a gentle startup. Defensiveness, and the antidote is taking responsibility and also being vulnerable. One and one, they're kind of hand in hand together. Then you have stonewalling. That's basically when you basically keep people at a humongous distance. But think of it like this: when two people are arguing and they live in the same household, they eventually have to see each other. But like some people will argue and they'll be in the same room and there's like a giant wall between them. They're not speaking, they're not interacting, they're ignoring each other, they're not talking. They're going to separate bedrooms. They could be in the same room or separate bedrooms, but they'll be ignoring each other so harshly that it's like there's like a giant wall inside there between them, stonewalling. And that's not good, right? It really isn't. And the opposite of stonewalling is what's it called? Self-soothing. That's what it is, self-soothing. So if you get very angry at your partner, it's not recommended that you stonewall them, because what happens a lot of the times is that people will become flooded with emotions when they're stonewalling. And after the fight, what happens is after the fight, they stonewall, they go their separate ways. And then they're just thinking about what happened, the fight, playing it in their head over and over again. And it starts to fester to the point, to the degree where when they see each other again, it is like ding, ding, round two, right? Because they have been thinking about this over and over again, that they're getting more physiologically stressed, their body's getting more tense, and they're getting ready to argue again because they're still very hot from the arguments. What's recommended is that when they separate after the pause, that they start to do something that's like self-soothing, like listening to music or watching their favorite TV show or doing something fun. And then when they come back together, they're not as bad anymore. It takes around 23 minutes or so for your body to calm down from the conflict that you just had. So if you can just do this for 23 minutes, for the audience, just 23 minutes, go your separate ways and do something to relax. Then by the time you see each other again at minutes 124, you won't be as mad, and you'll be able to work it out most likely. There's like a significantly higher chance of being able to work it out, like 80% or something like that, to be able to work out that argument. Then there's the last one. There's the last. There's the last horsemen of the apocalypse. So these are the four horsemen of the apocalypse by John Gottman. The last one, another Bible reference, by the way, just throwing out the Bible. It's a Bible reference from Revelations. So people who are not like what's it called, very verse savvy or book savvy, Bible savvy, the four horsemen of the apocalypse are the four horsemen that showed up before the world's, well, when the world's already kind of ending in Revelations. So these four horsemen are the ones that show up in relationships when they're about to end. That's why they call it the four horsemen. But the fourth one, back to what I was saying, the fourth one is contempt. Contempt. So thinking so little of your partner that you start to treat them like crap a lot of the times. A very good example of this is and this example is pretty intense, but it's one that I see a lot, I hear a lot, I've seen it too many times. So it's like the most common example that I can give. But it is when what's it called, when a husband is doing let's say they're working and earning income, and they're the breadwinner, provider, whatever you want to call it, and they start to become arrogant and boastful because of this and proud, and they start to see their wives as not good enough, right? So they start to degrade them and start to treat them as less, right? And even say negative things like, you don't do anything, you're just at home with the kids. So one of the worst things you can say, because motherhood is extremely difficult.
Hell yeah.
Exactly, it is. It is. It's tough. It's tough raising kids.
It
I mean,
really
it
is.
is. And for a husband to say something like that, that's just cruel and mean, and it shows contempt. It shows contempt for your partner. But then here's the thing: there's like a feedback loop that forms unconsciously. I don't think I said. Well, before I continue, I'm not sure if I said this previously, but I also love psychoanalysis. So I specialize in a couple of different things when it comes to like theories and psychological approaches and therapy approaches. One of those is psychoanalysis. I love psychoanalysis. I'm a psychoanalyst. It's pretty cool. But anyways, and there's a feedback loop that gets created in people's minds sometimes, and that is if they start to speak something into existence, if they start saying something, right? Then they start to believe it sometimes. Be careful with what you say, because your mind cannot tell the difference when you speak a word, and your mind will get confused and be put into a spell. That's what they call it, spelling. You get it? Spelling, as in writing something, and you put a spell on yourself. Anyways, okay. It's okay. Bad joke. Okay. This is a part where I had the laughing sound or something, or the cricket sound in this case. But what's it called? If a person starts to develop contempt for their partner and sees them as less, then if they were exposed to other people at work or in the friend group or at the gym or something else, they start to evaluate people at a higher level. So devaluing their wife, for example, and overvaluing a stranger. This is the area where cheating kind of tends to happen as well, right? So when you start to see your partner with contempt, and then see other people as more of a attractive partner, right? Something like that. But that cannot happen. And the solution for this, the antidote for contempt, is actually the culture of appreciation. You have to build a culture of appreciation within a relationship to not let contempt get you. To not let it get you. There's a technique that I tell people to use a lot of the times. When they're feeling contempt for their partners and they're struggling with this, I always come to use a specific technique, a set of techniques. But one that I always come to use is to think about the three things that make their partner amazing, that make them better than everybody else.
Oh, that's nice.
It is nice. It is.
Yeah.
I mean, because if you list the three things that make your partner amazing, that remind you of why you picked them, that let you know that they're the one, that let you know that they're special, then you start to elevate them inside of your own mind. So if you start saying something like, I love my partner because she makes me lunch, right? Whenever I'm tired. I love my partner because, let's say, she's always there for me when I have a hard day. I love my partner because what's it called? She's very sweet to me and always remembers important dates for me, or always wants to hang out together. If you list just 3 positive things, then you're counteracting contempt mentally and building the culture of appreciation that's required to actually be able to what's it called, maintain the relationship and the strength of the relationship. Now, again, I deviated significantly, but the reason why I mentioned this in the first place was because of what I said a while ago. So courage, heroic courage, is what's needed for men in this time period. There needs to be courage. There has to be a level of courage that men stick with. Heroic courage is a virtue from Bushido, and one that I think people benefit from. Then there's honor. Honor essentially means be good of character. Be of good character, right? And if you value honor so much, then you're not going to do anything that could jeopardize it. You'll try to do the right thing most of the time, because your honor is so important to you that you wouldn't jeopardize it. You know, in Japan back in the day, if you betrayed your honor, if you disgraced your family, disgraced yourself, you would have to, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't mention that. Maybe I shouldn't mention that topic. But you would have to get your honor back. I'll leave it there. I'll leave it there. You would have to get your honor back. You would have to regain your honor in a couple of different ways. I won't go into detail with what I was going to say next, because what's it called? Maybe it's not a a sound direction to go in. But
It's not positive.
it's not positive. It's not positive. Just know that honor matters. Honor matters. Honor matters. Then you have compassion. Compassion is also necessary for people to have. Compassion is showing sympathy towards others suffering, and being able to understand what they're going through, to not be critical, to not attack them, to not judge them, to be able to stay loving in a loving way towards people. And this is very important for a lot of different reasons. It's one of the things that's important when there's interpersonal conflict within relationships. But when love meets suffering and stays loving, that's compassion. A lot of the times. I didn't come up with that, by the way. It was somebody else. But it's important, because if you're hurt by somebody who's hurting you, and it hurts, and you're suffering, but you still love them, and don't forget that you love them, then you have developed compassion. If you're being hurt by somebody, by your partner, and as soon as you get hurt by them, you turn into a rabid animal and you want to get revenge and you become vindictive, that is not compassionate. That is the opposite. That's vindictiveness. That's vengeful energy. And it's important to never allow yourself to change like that. Do you remember a while back we talked about the book Lord of the Flies? And talked about the beasts that exist within everybody? And I had said that it's everybody's responsibility to prevent themselves from changing, from being changed by the world. That you have to maintain who you are at all costs. That is a very good example of this, compassion. If you experience suffering and hurt from others, and you turn into a vindictive person, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't do this in the grand scheme of things. If there's like a bad person trying to hurt you, oh man, let them have it. Let them have it, right? If you're getting attacked in what's it called, in public, and or by somebody, like an entity, like a government or something, right? It's okay to defend yourself. You have the right to defend yourself. You do. And you have the right to, like, you know, bear arms, defend yourself, hit somebody, do all these different things. But when it comes to relationships, if you're feeling hurt by your partner and it's agonizing and you're suffering, to turn vindictive, that's not right. It isn't. So maybe revenge can be, or the self-defense can be applicable in public and all that stuff with people that you don't know. But the thing is, if you get revenge or vengeful or vindictive towards your partner because you're suffering, then you're going to try to hurt them. Maybe in the way they hurt you, maybe in the worst way. And the truth is, in a relationship, when there's conflict, if somebody wins, both people lose. Right? If somebody wins, both people lose. Because if you win, if you are able to, you know, get one over your partner and take it out on them, get them back for what they did to you. Okay, let's say you win. Now they're destroyed. But if you lose, if you're experiencing hurt and suffering, but you're not able to work past it, then you are suffering and you lose. There can be no winners at the end of the day. There has to be a resolution. And I'll probably talk about it at some point later on. Then there's honesty and sincerity, essentially meaning consistency and transparency, and be fair and predictable. So being predictable, fair, transparent, honest, all these and consistent, all these different things are important within relationships with people, with public people, like people you meet in public, with coworkers, with relationships. You have to be honest and sincere. No one likes a liar, right? Duty and loyalty. Stay responsible for what you have done and said. And somebody who practices duty and loyalty, it says right here, to everyone that they are responsible for, they remain true and they take care of. And with that, with duty and loyalty, that one is applicable in a lot of different ways in a lot of different issues that you could point out. But duty and loyalty could look like, let's say, staying faithful, right? Mm-hmm. Staying faithful, taking care of your kids. It could look like staying loyal, right? And faithful, fidelity. Staying loyal to your partner, even when things are going crazy, when they're getting chaotic, right? I think it was John Gottman who published a specific research article or something like that that said that, I think it said this. It said 5% of affairs happen purely on poor impulse control, but 95% of affairs happen because there's already conflict or unresolved issues within the relationship. So if there's there are a lot of issues within the relationship, then people are likely to cheat. But if you have duty and loyalty, then you're less likely to cheat because the code protects you. If you're about to jump off a cliff and do something dumb, the code protects you. It will always protect you. It will. And if you have these things, yet again, if you have integrity, respect, heroic courage, honor, compassion, honesty, sincerity, duty, and loyalty, then your life as a man will be a lot easier. It will be, significantly. If it worked for the samurai, it can work for everybody else. It really can. But then there are a couple of other topics that I want to point out. I'm not sure how long we've been running for already. How long has it been?
I don't know.
Me neither, I don't know either. But these are important topics. And it's probably going to be a bunch of editing, so it's okay. So some of the important topics are the ability to change, for one. So a lot of men struggle with change. They struggle with being willing to change. And women, when they leave men who struggle to change, they usually have been accepting at the end of the relationship way before they left their partner. Because some men just never want to change. And I'm a guy, right? But again, I'm trying to call out other men, not because I'm being mean, but because I'm trying to point out something, that there has to be this ability to be better, hence Better Man Project, right? For women, women struggle a lot with a lot of different things nowadays, and there's a specific phrase or term that describes the female experience, and it describes how women struggle with so much. It's called Wonder Woman syndrome. I mean, it's Wonder Woman syndrome, but there's a different variation of it that's similar. It has a different name. It's kind of like Wonder Woman syndrome, but not really. It's a little bit different. But when they talk about it, they talk about how women are expected to become employees, providers, to be able to be great homemakers, to be able to be great parents, and to be able to be great partners at the same time, while at the same time looking great.
Yeah.
Freaking nightmare. No, really, yeah. It is. It really is. And when I saw that article, I was kind of shocked. I'll probably share it at some point somewhere. But I show it to my clients once in a while when I see that they struggle with something like this, when they expect so much out of themselves. That's unrealistic. It is. But if women are expected to do all these different things plus more, isn't it fair at some point for men to be okay with changing for the better? Right?
Yeah, why not?
Exactly. Why not? So I think that it is incumbent that men are willing to change in what they're doing, whether it's the way they carry themselves within a relationship, whether it is in the way they operate mentally, emotionally, all these different things. And again, I understand that it's not easy. I know that it's super hard. It is, because of the way that the world's conditioned to men. But the thing is, if this does not happen, then it leads to being closed off emotionally, being dismissive, and at some point, it leads to the end of relationships. And I've seen it cause the end of relationships too many times, not wanting to change. It is important for everybody, but for men specifically, it is important to be able to become better and to be more complete. There's this famous psychologist named Carl Jung, and he was very interesting. And everybody's always referencing his work. He's very smart. He passed away already, but he was very smart. He said that I mean, I think it was an anima and animus. I think those were the phrases, the terms that he used back then. But it's basically feminine energy and masculine energy. Think of it like that. And he talks about how women have feminine energy and have masculine energy. And the way that the world has gone the last couple of decades, women have taken on more masculine energy, right? For masculine energy, men have taken have masculine energy, but they struggle with feminine energy. They do. And I'm not talking about, I mean, anything weird. I'm just saying, like, I mean, being in touch with your emotions, being able to convey your thoughts or emotions in a healthy way, and not going towards the, how they say, toxic masculinity, way, direction. And that has to be changed. Otherwise, then they basically condemn themselves to a life of misery. Right? Here's the other thing too. The other thing is accountability. A lot of men, they struggle with accountability. Women too, though. Right? Women too. Both men and women struggle with accountability. But men's lack of accountability makes it to where they become controlling, in some cases abusive, and at some points, and everybody knows this term, gaslighters. Right? So men can turn to all these different things when they struggle with accountability. It's okay to admit that you're wrong. It's okay to admit that you made mistakes. It's okay to be human. It's okay to not be perfect. With men, they can also struggle with addiction. This is where it gets really complicated. So a lot of men can struggle with addiction. It can look like struggling with drugs, with alcohol, with what's it called, with video game addiction. It can look like struggling with pornography. It can look like struggling with all these different things. It can. Addiction, a lot of the times, is a way to escape for people. It's an escape mechanism. And that specifically, addiction goes against duty and loyalty a lot of the times. How is a person going to be engaging in duty and loyalty if they're being consumed by an addiction? How? It's not possible. It really isn't. So, again, going back to the seven virtues, these things, this code specifically, and people can pick their own code. I'm not saying this is the code for everybody to follow. There's no one specific code to follow. Like I said, this is like my primary code that I operate by, because I grew up with Bushido, and I grew up with learning about Bruce Lee. I did martial arts for like 15 years. I mean, so it was like a humongous part of my life. It was there. And it's just what helped me make it through all those different times. And what's it called? It may help me avoid different obstacles too, and help me avoid different pitfalls that most people make. A lot of them. Because I had this going for me right here. And I think it'd be helpful for a lot of people to really read about Bushido. And again, it could be something else that they go towards. Not Bushido, it could be something else. It could be a religion. It could be a different set of beliefs. It could be something. But ultimately, it's important to really, what's it called? To really try to grow as people and try to be the best you can be. With other things that are important to overcome, it includes things like, being mindful that family always comes first. In my opinion, family always comes first. My opinion, right? So some men will try to put things before their family, whether it be drugs, alcohol, friends, whether it be on their own selfish endeavors. And these things are not, I don't think it's correct, personally. But it hurts the family system. In my opinion, family comes first. Men should always work hard. Men should always work hard. That's another one too. Some men struggle with having to work harder, being disciplined, right? So self-discipline is a huge challenge for a lot of men, and it has to be something that changes. It does. Men have to be disciplined, especially nowadays with the way life is going. Otherwise, it leads to them not being able to get the most out of life, not being able to achieve their bigger goals, not being able to stay focused, and being able to do what has to be done to help their families out. Discipline matters, right? Then you have spirituality. I think people should really go towards men should go towards being more spiritual. I do. I really do. That one's so much of a big subject to get into. And here's the thing though. So this is one of the biggest ones that I think it's one of the hardest ones for men to conquer. It really is. It is continuing to do what is right despite of not feeling appreciated. So a lot of men, they say that they don't feel appreciated a lot of the times. I hear it a lot, but also I see it a lot. I mean, social media, everywhere, right? I'm not sure if you see it. It's not just my feet, I hope not. but, but, but men, they talk about this, right? How they want to feel appreciated. Yeah, right?
I guess.
Yeah.
I usually see from a female's perspective.
But the thing is, with men, right? There has to be a level of acceptance that sometimes you will not feel appreciated.
Mhm.
And I think of it like this: appreciated, feeling appreciated is the same thing as feeling motivated to do something. So when you feel motivated to do something, you're more likely to do it. This includes, let's say, going to the gym. This includes doing something that has to be done, right? If you feel motivated, you will do these things, and that's what people do go to the gym sometimes when they go because they feel motivated to do so. But for a lot of people, they have to learn to operate without motivation. They have to learn to operate with what's it called, discipline. But if men are saying that they don't feel appreciated and that they what's it called, that they're not going to be loyal or abide by duty because they're not feeling appreciated, that's not correct, right? You don't get to say I'm going to do whatever I want because I don't feel appreciated. You don't. That goes against duty and loyalty. Again, another reason why the code is helpful. And a couple of different things that I want to point out. We're almost done. But a couple of things I want to point out are these as well. It's not okay to stay in your comfort zone. You have to grow. You have to face the truth about a lot of different things, including yourself and who you are. Going back to integrity, you got to have integrity. You have to be willing to risk getting hurt. You have to be able to overcome past grief, fear, and anger, and be able to overcome these challenges to be able to have the best life you can have in this lifetime. Otherwise, you will suffer significantly. I almost forgot. Sorry. Two things that I want to point out. We're almost done. I promise you. I'm not sure if you have to go, but what's it called? No? Okay. So there are two things that I want to point out. There are two stories that I heard once that or two metaphors I heard once that I think are very important for people to understand and to maybe see relationships from this perspective. So the first one is this one. So women, the way this lady, and I didn't say this. Women did, by the way. So I didn't say this. So in case anybody has a problem with what I'm saying, I didn't say this. Women said this. Happy women said this. The first one was a woman said that women are like flags, right? When a flag is flowing in the air, it's beautiful. When it's up there, it's beautiful. When it serves its purpose, it's beautiful, and it can be admired, and it can do its part. But if the pole is not huge, right? Now people might go to a certain direction when I say pole, but that's not what I mean, right? If the pole is not huge, as in the man's character, the man's strength, the man's ability to lead and to be able to lead the relationship in whatever way it needs to be led, whether it be logically or emotionally. If he's not able to lead the relationship, then he is symbolic of a pole that cannot hold a flag. If you had a giant flag, would you put it on a tiny pole? Would you?
No.
No, that thing would freaking snap. That thing would snap. So if a man's not willing to put himself through what he has to put himself through and develop the way he's got to develop and become better, the way he's got to become better, then what's going to happen when he meets somebody who's amazing? That's not going to work. It's not. The bigger the flag, the bigger the pull. That's the truth. It really is. The other metaphor that I heard, I thought it was a lot more beautiful, but here it comes. They say that this lady said that women are, the ones who hold the umbrella up, right? And I'm like, what is she talking about? She said, if it was raining outside, let's say you go outside, let's say you go outside. If it's raining outside, would you pick up an umbrella that has a bunch of holes in it and go into the rain with it? Would
No,
you? Why wouldn't you pick up an umbrella that has a bunch of holes in it? Why wouldn't you just pick up the umbrella up?
because I would get wet and it
E-
defeats the purpose of staying dry.
exactly, right? You will get wet and it will defeat the purpose. Men have an ability to be able to withstand so much in life. And yes, there's this ability that men have. And I'm not saying they should go through more and suffer more because they are men, but men have this God-given ability, and it's 100% true. I see it every single day. This ability to be able to withstand more punishment from the world. And in this metaphor, this lady said that a man can withstand so much punishment, and that a woman's role within the relationship, when they are holding the umbrella up, and the umbrella being the man in this case, is to keep pushing the man and helping him and hold him up when he's struggling. So if a man comes home and he's tired, right, and he's not doing well, then a wife can be kind, give him words of encouragement and say, "You got this. You're doing amazing. I believe in you. Thank you so much for helping the family out, for going through this that you're going through. I know it's not easy, but we love you and we thank you." That is symbolic of holding the umbrella up repeatedly and doing stuff like this, saying stuff like this that encourages motivation, resiliency, all these different things. But I tell people that in order for a woman to feel comfortable doing this, they have to be able to hold an umbrella that's worth holding up. That's worth holding up. Otherwise,
Mm.
what's the motivation? It destroys the motivation for women to give positive affirmations, to be encouraging, to believe in their partners when the man's not doing his part and not trying to become the best that he can become, and not trying to push beyond a certain point, and cannot give something to their partner. What do you think about that metaphor, the umbrella one?
Um, I thought it was a little silly.
It is though. It is silly. It is silly. But she said it better than I did. But the main point of it is that men have to do better, and by them doing better, then they're able to inspire confidence from their partners and make it to where the relationship flows. You gotta give your girlfriend or wife something to believe in. You do. I see it too many times where men uh don't get canceled, but where men are sassy. Men are sassy, how they say nowadays, where they
I
don't
guess.
want to do certain things. And I mean, the whole 50-50 thing is one thing, and I have my thoughts about that, but I'm not trying to focus on that today. For this specific topic, men are struggling to give women something to believe in a lot of the times. They're either not trying as hard as they should, or they're doing certain things that are just not fair, that are what's it called, that make it to where they're taking a backseat in the relationship.
Mm, I just like men. What do you mean by men are being sassy and taking the back seat? Like,
Well,
it just
mhm.
sounds like there's a lot. It also sounds like there's a lot of pressure when you're saying they got to
Yes,
do more, like for the character.
more so like do more for trying to keep the relationship heading in a specific direction. Do you remember when we were at Gary? What's it called? We were at Gary long time ago, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure if you ever heard this when you were there, but Ms. Williams would always tell me that the counselor or the residential advisor, they set the culture for the dorm.
Mm. Yeah.
So whatever staff member there is inside there sets the culture for the dorm. They do. if you go to if you went to a bad dorm, right? 7113. No, I'm playing. No, I'm playing.
Because that was my last year there. That's what happened to me. I got sent to a really bad dorm. The culture was
Yes.
terrible.
Yeah, and some of them were pretty crazy and chaotic. It was like a zoo. But 7113 was like that. No offense, 7113, if you hear me. But I mean, it was kind of
Mhm.
like that. I think they called it Zoo House. I think that's what they called it.
Yeah.
But the staff member would see the culture of the dorm and make it to where whatever the culture was is what everybody would walk into.
Hmm.
What what the umbrella metaphor is trying to say is that men set the culture for the relationship and for the family. That's what it is. It's true. Men set the culture for the relationship. They do. Think about it. In every great relationship you've probably ever seen, there's always a good man in it. That's doing what he's supposed to. You never seen a good one. I didn't say bad one. You're making a face. But in every
I'm
single
just saying, why does everything have to depend on a man?
it doesn't. It doesn't. So if both people can set the culture, a power couple. Power couple. But
Oh yeah.
this goes into what's it called? Couples dynamics. So it's where it gets more complicated. I preach for a power couple. I believe in power couples.
Mm.
I believe in that. However, more times than not, in most given relationships, it's not ideal as ideal as a power couple. In my opinion, I don't think it is for everybody or for most people. In my opinion, I mean, and I guess whatever your definition of power couple is, I guess depending on that, it could vary. But I think that a lot of the times it does fall on a man to set the stage, to set the culture of the relationship.
Mm. Um, what was that study that you said where they gave out this survey for people? What was it for school? What was it? It was like a European thing,
Which one?
something for them to be aware of themselves.
Mm,
You remember?
no, which one?
You said that it was like a survey or something that they had to like do. I think it was a class maybe, just so that they can see like how aware they were in terms of like their reaction.
Gina, you're losing me here.
Yeah, okay. No, it's okay. I'll look back on the video, but I feel like that should definitely be a thing brought to classes. That would help a lot to gauge more like where people are.
Oh, the assignments that's given to college students their first year for relationships to
There you
help
go.
them see what's it called? To help them understand what are healthy versus unhealthy relationships.
There you go.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like that should be a thing. Um, yeah, I just wish men were better.
Yeah. No, me too. Me too. But I mean, that's the thing. So I mainly made this episode because I mean, I work with a lot of people. I see a lot of different people. I see people in social media, all these different things. And there's even an article made about this bad article, horrifying article that said there's a shortage of good men out there.
Yes. And just like, my own daily experiences in life, like every day that I'm at work, I'm like, it's always a man, it's never from a woman.
Yeah,
Anything that happens, like it's always a man who's angry, man who's confused.
exactly. And so there's so much there. Like I mean, a lack of emotional intelligence, a lack of emotional awareness, but also what's it called? A lack of self control. All these different things, and they're bad. They really are bad.
Snap, snap, snap.
But I mean, exactly. But there has to be some level of change. There has to be
Yes.
reformation or restructuring, some kind restructuring of the way that men carry themselves and the way they operate. But I think it's important for men to become. I keep saying better because that's the only thing that comes to mind. Better.
Mm.
Men gotta do better because I'm afraid of where things could lead at some point one day if things don't change. I'm wondering if one day, I mean, according to some people, it's going to be the case where there are a lot more singles out there, a lot less kids, a lot less relationships, a lot less of everything, and that's a horrifying world to live in. It really is. So I hope that whatever we talked about today, hope that anything that we talked about today lands on somebody's page or they hear this and it makes them just think, makes them reflect, makes them realize that they have to do better.
Mm.
And that's the podcast.